So this is module 4, which is a module about programs, that's the software running on your system, and passwords, which are a really fundamental part of the security on any computer system accessing the internet. So let's have a look at programs first of all. So programs that you're likely to use on a Windows 10 machine is Microsoft Office 365. Now that's a subscription, and the subscription will include Microsoft Word, which is word processing, as well as Microsoft Excel for spreadsheets, PowerPoint for presentations, Access, and Outlook for managing emails. So we're not going to look in any great detail at those. We're going to concentrate on the file types that these particular programs create for you. Then there's Notepad. Notepad is important because Notepad does not have any hidden formatting in it, and we'll explain that when we get into the module. It's just a straightforward, simple, what you see is what you get text editor. Then there's the Microsoft Snipping tool. If you want to take a record of a part of your screen and save a screenshot, then you can use the Microsoft Snipping tool. And then there's Microsoft Sticky Notes. That's a way of being able to put a sticky note, a bit like a paper one, on your screen and save it for later while you are accessing some of the material, even on this course. Then we'll have a look at Google Docs. Google Docs is an alternative to Microsoft Office. Part of Google, comes with Google Chrome. And then we'll have a look at Adobe Acrobat Reader that create PDF files. And PDF files are also an important part of the use of a computer, particularly on the internet, because they are typically the download versions of many different documents on the internet. And then we will have a look at passwords and how you can create passwords. You will already have a password on your system to log into Windows 10, but we'll have a look at alternatives for that and some security issues. So here we are on our familiar desktop, and a lot of what we're going to look at is in settings. So let's just do a quick reminder on settings in respect of how you can manage the programs and the apps running on your system. So the first way is to click on the Start button and select the gear wheel, and it comes up with Windows settings, and the apps are in the apps box, and you can then select each of the alternative selections for the apps that are running on your particular system. There is another quick way of accessing that, and that is to use the Windows key and hit the I key, and that will take you straight into Windows settings, which is another way of doing it. And yet another way is to use the run command, and that is Windows key and R for run, and it brings up a little box, and you can type in there control, and control brings you up the old version of Control Panel. And Control Panel is something which is what we all used to use back in the day, and it allows you again to access all of the programs that you have running on your system. So let's have a look at some of the file types, and you can see this on file extensions. Just to remind you where file extensions are, if we look at View, then we can either have file extensions showing, or we can turn them off under the View option. So there's the file extensions which are on and off, and there are also hidden files. If you click on View and select Hidden Files, then any system files which may be there will become visible in your desktop. There aren't any in this particular folder, but if you went to one of the system folders, then you would certainly find lots of system files which are normally hidden and incidentally can't be deleted. So let's have a look at some of these. So the top one, we've got a JPEG file, and if we right click on the file, Dreamstime number.jpg, we've got an option which is open with, and then we can open that particular file with Paint, 3D Paint, the Photos option, the Snagit editor, which is installed on this thing, Windows Photo Viewer, anyway, because it is an image file, a graphic file, and we can then open one of the graphic applications in order to read it. The next one down is an HTML file, and HTML files are web files. So when you're looking at files on your browser, then they will be hosted on an HTML file. So if we right click that and select Open With, then we've got Google Chrome, Internet Explorer and Microsoft Edge, all of the browsers which are installed on this particular system. So if we wanted to have a look at that, we would probably select Google Chrome. We go down another one, we've got Recipe Book. Now I've got different versions of this, and so if we have a right click on this and Open With, then the first option comes up, which is Adobe Acrobat Reader, and if I select that, then we can see the particular file that we're having a look at here, and that is the PDF file of this particular recipe, and the PDF reader is Acrobat. Do I want to make this the default PDF? Yes, I do, and then it means that that will always come up. And will I set the reader as a default? Yes, I can do that too, because normally on PDFs, then that's what I would be using to read a PDF. But that's not the only option, because if I close down these files and then I right click again and select Open With, you can see that I've got Google Chrome that will open it, Microsoft Edge will open it, and even more interestingly, Word, which is the Microsoft word processor. So if I open that particular file with Word, it fires up Word. I get a warning that it's got to be converted, and then that will open it up in Word. And here it is opened up in the word processor. Now the really interesting thing about this is that because I've got Word running on the system, but I don't have the full Acrobat program, it means that I can actually make changes to this document. So if I wanted to add information in here, then I can do that, and then I can save it, and I can save it either as a Word document, which is a DOCX extension, or I can save it as another recipebook.pdf, and we'll show you that in a second. So if I take the Save As option, which is this one right up the top, I can go Save As, and the title is going to be recipebook.docx, but in this box underneath where it says Word document, if I click on the drop down menu, one of the options in here, apart from all the different versions of Word and web pages, etc., etc., I've got PDF. So any Word document that you open in the word processor can be saved as a PDF. So let's have a look at text files, and these are the files that I've got the file extension txt, and if I right click on that and Open With, then the first option is Notepad, the second option is WordPad, and I've also got Choose Other Apps, so you can actually open text files in pretty much any word processing application. So we'll have a look at Notepad. And the thing about Notepad is that it does not have any hidden formatting underneath. The point of this is that if in a Word document, and I'll show you that in a second, I can actually highlight information in a Word document and turn it into a hyperlink, which means that if you click on it, then it will go through and will access an internet web page, which is one way of hiding security issues from people who have not got your best interests at heart. But other than that, we've got file, we can add a new one, open another text file, save it, save as, we can print it. So there's a lot of basic stuff in here. Edit, we have the find option, so we can search through text documents to find particular entries. Format, we've got very few options here. One is word wrap to stop the lines going on forever. And there's a short list of fonts that you can select to change the formatting of your text document. But the whole point about Notepad is that if you get into programming and you're being asked to make changes to a script file, then the script file would be loaded into Notepad and saved as a TXT file or maybe a JavaScript file, so you can then insert it into a web page if that's one of the options that you're being asked to do. So Notepad is, if you like, the vanilla version of a word processing application. Another file extension that you may come across is a CSV file, and a CSV file is one which is typically opened in a spreadsheet. So if I go again to the open with, then it will open in Excel, which is the Microsoft spreadsheet application. I can open it in Notepad because it is a very basic listing scenario, or in WordPad. We haven't really looked at WordPad, but we'll do that in a second. So a CSV file, CSV stands for comma separated values, and if I open this in Excel, open with Excel, then the information in it is just a pure list, but it can also be opened as a text editor. So any spreadsheet application such as Excel or the one which is in Google Docs will open a CSV file and will then apply its own formatting. So let's have a quick look at WordPad, and WordPad is in Windows Accessories. So if you go into Programs and you look at Windows Accessories, there's a whole range of products in there which are add-ons, and one of them, Notepad we've mentioned, Paint we've mentioned, the snipping tool we'll get onto in a moment, but WordPad is in there, and WordPad is a step up from Notepad, but is still not the full operating version of Microsoft Word. So there is a lot more in WordPad, and these files are saved as RTF files. So if I open up Word, which is what I've got, and I take a bit out of my Word document, I can copy that and go back to the WordPad document and paste that in there. Then you can see that in a simple document, then the WordPad is very similar to Word, and you can add pictures, you can add paint drawings and so on. It's not the full-blown version of Word, but it is a very similar word processing product which you can use rather than Notepad if you haven't run to the full value version of Microsoft Word. And the next one we want to have a look at is again in Microsoft Accessories, Windows Accessories, which is the snipping tool. So if we go into Windows Accessories and select the snipping tool, what this does is allows you to take a screenshot of part of your desktop. So if I click on New for snipping tool, you'll see that the whole screen goes into a shaded format, but then I can draw a rectangle around the part of the screen that I want to keep, and then that part of the desktop picture is recorded into the snipping tool window. So under File, I can save it, and it saves as a capture.png. It always calls it a capture, but you can then change that to whatever name you want and save that onto your system. You can print it, you can edit with Paint, and there are other tools that you can play around with, and the help about is the typical help file that you would get with any other utility on the Windows system. And the last utility that we want to have a quick look at is Sticky Notes. And Sticky Notes is in the system. It's not in Accessories, but it's in the main menu. And what it allows you to do is to make notes on your system, which are then on the desktop and persist as a way of keeping a record of anything that you want to hang on to. So, and that will always be there. You can change the color of your sticky notes, you can delete it, or when you finish using it, you can then copy and paste it into a document somewhere. So that's Sticky Notes. And I'd now like to show you what you can do with a Word document, and this has got security connotations. So if I bring up a Word document that I've got and I highlight one of the elements in there, one of the things that I can do is to add a hyperlink at the back of the words in the document. So if I can go to link, then what that means is that I can insert a link, and I've got one saved, which is the name of our website, beuptodatenow.com. Click on OK, and now what happens is that under this bit of text which says half a cup of chopped celery, if I click on that, and I need to hold the control key down to do it, then it's going to take me through to the main course that you're working on at the moment, and that is a hyperlink. Now just be aware of that, because what may happen is that people can embed links, particularly in emails, which are misleading to you as the user, because you can't tell always exactly where they're going to. And finally, I want to talk about passwords. And passwords are a very important part of the security of any system. And the password that you use to log into your system, which is the email address that you get from Microsoft for Windows 10, and then the password that you set, is one that you should never ever use for anything else. Now the thing about passwords is that if you log into another website or another system somewhere else, then you really should use your email address with a completely different password. And the password rules are that any password should be more than 8 characters long. They should be a mixture of uppercase and lowercase. Should include numbers, and special characters. So what's a good way of being able to do this? Well, 8 characters is simple enough. The mixture of uppercase and lowercase is straightforward. You should know that an uppercase Q is different character as far as your computer is concerned from a lowercase q. Numbers are numbers, and special characters are the ones that are things like @ signs, $signs, and similar characters to the ones that you might want to use elsewhere. So let's have a look at what is a good system for setting a password. Well, the word password is not a good choice for a number of reasons. For a start, it's not more than 8 characters long, but if that were met that requirement, then one of the ways of writing the word password would be capital P, which includes the uppercase requirement. Instead of the A, we can use the @ sign. Instead of the S's, we can use the $sign. Then the W. Instead of the O, we can use a 0, because that is different, and then the RD for the complete word. And that is a complex password. It's not more than 8 characters long, but it's not a bad start. So what is there that has got any kind of meaning, which includes letters and numbers? Well, you can use addresses, not your current address, but another address or an old address that you've got, and use those conversions within it. Or you can use date, not your date of birth, not your wife's date of birth, nothing which is traceable back to you through, particularly through social media, but through any other dates that may be important to you, which would not be familiar to you and or to anybody else discoverable on the internet. So that's the end of module 4, and in that we've talked about Microsoft Office, the different parts of that. If you need training on any one of those elements within Microsoft Office, then I can recommend there are plenty of other training courses around which will do that. I've been concentrating on file types, so an MS Word would be a doc file, and then there's Notepad that you would use if you were dealing with scripts, or you needed a word processor that had got no hidden formatting. I've shown you how to use the Microsoft snipping tool, Microsoft sticky notes. We mentioned Google Docs. I haven't looked at that in any great detail, but if you do a Google search on Google Docs, then you'll soon find it, but it will need a Gmail email account, which we'll talk about in a subsequent module. And then there's Adobe Acrobat Reader, which produces PDF files which can then be interchangeable with several of the other utilities that we've used. And then finally an important message about passwords and how to construct a password which is difficult for the algorithms which are running on the internet to unravel, and I'm afraid that there are some. So if you follow that advice, then you can be as secure as you can be.